call to order the Saturday, September 24th, 2016 Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Drew.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Suzanne, would you start with the roll call of the commission members?
Reno, can you hear us?
Yes.
I mean, Vegas. We can't hear you at all now.
Can you hear us now, Katie?
We got it. We're good.
Chairman Wallace,
Here.
Vice Chairman Johnston,
Here.
Commissioner Almer,
Here.
Commissioner Barnes,
Here.
Commissioner Drew,
Here.
Commissioner Hebb, here, Commissioner McNinch,
Here.
Commissioner Valentine,
Here.
and Commissioner Young.
Will the county advisory board members please announce themselves?
Paul Dixon Clark, Chad Foster, Douglas County, Joe Freeman, Virginia.
Reno?
Leon Carson,
Glenn Bunch, Mineral.
And Elko?
Jim Cooney.
All right, thank you, guys. Move on to item number 20, approval of the agenda for possible action. The commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. Any comments from the commission on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take it out to public comment in Reno.
No comment in Reno, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. In Elko
No comment, Elko.
and Las Vegas. Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion.
Move to approve today's agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner McNinch to approve the agenda as presented. I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous, 8-0. Moving on to item 21, member items, announcements, and correspondence. Informational, commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Member items? Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, just to mention, I did get a fair amount of correspondence on some of the items we'll be discussing today, and I'll bring that up at the appropriate time. I guess the one that probably doesn't fall in under any of the agenda items is I have gotten a fair amount of correspondence on the proposed expansion of NAS Fallon range and some of the ramifications for public access and wildlife management there, and the same in terms of the expansion of the National or Nevada Test and Training Range. So that's probably something I'll bring up again under future meeting items, but I did want to put on the radar that I got a fair amount of correspondence on both of those proposed expansions.
Commissioner Hubbs?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I was checking my work emails, and I did see that I did receive correspondence from Camilla Fox with Project Coyote, following up on the status of the proposed policy. And I believe she attached the same letter that was presented to the commission at the last meeting, and if it's anything different, I will forward over to Susan, but I don't think it is. I think it's the same one.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a conversation with Ms. Fox last night, and I did relay to her that I believe it's the intent to bring that policy back within the next meeting or so. I believe that the idea was in November to talk. There's some misunderstanding that it was being referred back to the committee, which is not the case. So I clarified that with her, and so I did talk to her and let her know that. So.
Anything further? I too had communication with Ms. Fox. She sent me the same email that I think Commissioner McNitch and Hubs received. And I called her actually on Thursday before I left for this meeting and let her know that that was my intention, was for the November meeting for that to be brought back. And so that's where we stand with that. So hearing nothing further from the commission, we'll move on to item 22, County Advisory Boards to Manage Wildlife Member Items. Informational. County Advisory Board members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Cab items in Las Vegas.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. Some correspondence that I received, and maybe you commissioners have, and I'm not sure if it's going to come up as a commission item, but the Desert National Wildlife Refuge, which is a hub for bighorn sheep here in southern Nevada. The Nevada Test and Training Range has asked for an expansion of use of that land and restriction from public from that land for doing stuff, and going from somewhere around 40% usage right now of the Desert Wildlife Refuge as a training range to like 80 to 85% of it. And I would like to know whether or not the commission was going to look into that and have a position that they wanted to take, or if the Department of Wildlife was going to have a position they were going to take on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
And Suzanne, do you want a copy of all of this for your record?
Sure.
Okay, I'll send you something.
Scan it
Next.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Chad Foster, Douglas County Cab. We would just like to make a request regarding the supporting documentations on the agenda on the website. We would like to see one link encompassing all of the supporting documentation instead of the multiple links. You can still leave those there for people that just want to pull up the one supporting documentation, but for our ease, it would be nice if all those were combined into one PDF that we could print out just at one time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further cab comments in Las Vegas? Hearing none, I'll move to Elko.
Jim Cooney, Elko Cab. I'd like to echo the feelings of the Douglas. Elko would like to see that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further in Elko?
More comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Comment in Reno.
No comment in Reno, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Closing item number 22, moving on to item 23, Commission Regulations for possible action adoption. Commission Regulation 16-02, Amendment Number 1, Fishing Seasons and Bag Limits for March 1, 2016 through February 28, 2018. Fisheries Division Administrator John Schober. For possible action, the Commission will consider Amendment Number 1 of the Fishing Seasons and Bag Limits for March 1st, 2016 through February 28, 2018. The Department is proposing an amendment to the harvest limit for fish in that portion of the Truckee River from 1,000 feet below Derby Dam to the boundary of Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation to be 3 game fish, of which 0 may be trout, catch and release only from February 1st through May 31st in Story and Washoe counties, and an amendment to change the harvest limit for trout in Lake Mojave and the Colorado River below Davis Dam to 5 trout in Clark County. Mr. Schober.
For the record, John Schober, Division Chief, Fisheries, Rendell. Chairman Wallace and Commissioners, we are requesting the Commission consider 2 minor amendments to the existing CR 1602, the 2-year fishing regulations through February 28th, 2018. As Chairman Wallace explained, this is in 2 parts. The first part is for the lower Truckee River to provide that seasonal 0 harvest limit for trout. This is the intent of this during that period, February through the end of May, is to protect what we expect to see an increasing level of spawning adult Lahontan cutthroat trout that would move up from Pyramid Lake. We're working in conjunction with both the Pyramid Lake tribe and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on recovery strategies for Lahontan cutthroat trout for the Truckee River, and we think that this is an important action that will encourage natural spawning of LCT in the Truckee River. At this point, Derby Dam is the highest point upstream that fish can move unimpeded from Pyramid Lake. The existing limit for other game fish is 3 fish, and it would remain the same at 3 fish for everything other than trout species during just that seasonal period. We made it all trout because some anglers may have a difficult time differentiating between Lahontan cutthroat trout and rainbow that may also be in that part of the system. That closure from Derby Dam 1,000 feet downstream is also existing in regulation. That has been in place for a long time. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it predates me. And so there's no change there. The only change that's encompassed in this is that 0 limit for trout species only during that seasonal period. And again, specifically to protect potentially spawning adult Lahontan cutthroat trout. The other portion of this is to change the harvest limit for trout in Lake Mojave and the Colorado River below Davis Dam from 10 fish to 5 fish. That makes a consistent regulation for us for the entire Colorado River system because it's currently 5 trout on Lake Mead and 10 trout on Lake Mojave and the Colorado River below Davis Dam. And this is also at the request of the state of Arizona. They desire and intend to change the regulation for the Arizona side of the river, in Arizona for the Colorado River and Lake Mojave to 5 fish next spring. One of the motivations for that is that Arizona will be doing an increasing level of trout stocking, particularly below Davis Dam, and they're concerned that there be a consistent limit and a little bit lower limit for those trout. Relative to trout stocking as well in Lake Mojave, we have been working with Arizona and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it's our understanding that Willow Beach National Fish Hatchery will be back at some level of trout production by next spring, and we anticipate that they will be providing stock trout in both Lake Mojave and the Willow Beach area and below Davis Dam. This is going to be a fairly limited number of fish initially, and we think it's prudent to provide a 5-fish limit rather than a 10-fish limit for those waters. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions or concerns.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Drew.
Yeah, John, I appreciate this, and I'm supportive of the regulation. I just want to make sure of one thing, and I think I know the answer, but it's a little bit confusing. The 0 limit for trout is specific to February 1st to May 31st. So from June 1st to January 31st, you could actually keep 3 trout in that portion of the Truckee River?
That's correct. During that period outside what we call the spawning period, all species would go back to that existing limit of 3 game fish.
So just to make it maybe a little bit more clear for someone reading this the first time, would there be any objection to adding language that says trout may be taken as part of the 3 game fish limit from June 1st to January 31st?
We certainly could do that if that would help.
I think it'd be more clear because I read that and I think I know what it says, but at the same time I could see how someone would think that's catch and release only all the time.
It's confusing. We worded this to be similar to other confusing regulations that we have, so we could certainly fix that.
Mr. Hubbs.
I know we kind of talked about this yesterday, but so the ladder, are you saying the ladder there works, but the screening is not sufficient to keep the fish from going off to other areas like you were saying to Fallon?
For the record, John Schoberg, Chief Fisheries. Commissioner Hubbs, my understanding, well, first of all, the fish screen itself, or the fish ladder and Derby Dam both are operated by the Bureau of Reclamation. And it's a facility that's been in place since the early 1900s. There was a fish ladder that was added to Derby Dam, I believe, 10 to 15 years ago. It's never been operated. And the reason why is, my understanding is that without installing a fairly complex and expensive fish screen mechanism on the Truckee Canal, which takes off at Derby Dam and goes to Fernley and Fallon, the concern is that fish that got past Derby Dam would then just move out in the wrong direction. They wouldn't stay in the river. So my understanding is there's been a lot of speculation about that fish screen. I don't know the timeline. That's a Bureau of Reclamation project. It could happen next year, it could happen in 5 years. Once that fish screen is in place to prevent fish movement into the Truckee Canal, we could theoretically operate the fish ladder and fish could move past this point. But right now, that's the issue.
And then I just had one question about the Lake Mead Hatchery. I think you mentioned a while back, but is the reason that that's not operating is because of the lake levels?
Again, for the record, John Schoberg, there are two issues with Lake Mead Hatchery for trout production. One of them is probably less significant, and that's the quagga mussels. You know, we can deal with that, and the only real constraint there is it would allow us to only use those fish in the Colorado River that we produced. The major issue is temperature related. Because of lake levels, essentially the intake for Lake Mead Hatchery is too close to the surface. And so our water temperatures in the hatchery are too warm to produce trout for other than 2 to 3 months of the year at this point. And the lake really isn't going in the right direction to make that better right now. The only alternative that we have would be to hook up to an alternate water supply. That's feasible with the application of enough money. But we're looking at probably current cost probably $6 to $8 million to move over to Southern Nevada Water Authority system rather than BMI, which we currently use. That would give us deeper, colder water, but also significantly increase the unit cost of water delivered to the hatcheries. So we're a little bit over a hump right now in terms of being able to reoperate the hatchery for trout just because of those temperatures, unless we see a significant increase in lake level in Lake Mead, the surface elevation.
Commissioner Valentine?
John, just for clarification, the Clark County changes, will those go into effect at the same time that Arizona's changes go into effect, or is there going to be a lag?
There is, and always, every time we do this, there's a little bit of a disconnect, because I believe Arizona's regulations work on the calendar year. So we have a couple of month period there where there's a difference in the regulations. Generally, we haven't found that to be a problem. We just, in terms of law enforcement, we just work together with Arizona, and typically, until it's effective in both states, they wouldn't be issuing citations or anything. So it's just a process we have to work through. There is a little disconnect of, I believe, 2 months between the regulatory periods for each state.
All right, thank you.
Further commission questions or comments? Seeing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out to public comment in Elko. Public comment in Reno. Thank you. And public comment in Las Vegas. No, Chad.
Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Chad Foster, Douglas County Cab for the record. Although we did support this and do support this, there was one dissenting vote at our commission meeting on Monday, and so I just wanted to voice the opinion of that dissenting vote. The vote was nay because they feel that there is a natural event happening with fish moving up the Truckee River to spawn, and more needs to be done regarding the habitat and spawning areas. The numbers are increasing, but he would like to see more protection and that we need to maximize the opportunity to get fish spawning naturally. The person also suggested that he preferred to see that area closed completely to take advantage of what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Further public comment in Las Vegas? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and a motion. Anything further from the commission? Commissioner Drew.
I would move to approve Commission Regulation 16-02, Amendment 1, Fishing Season and Bag Limits, March 1st, 2016 through February 28th, 2018 as presented today with the following changes, and that would be on page 4, at the end of the new green wording, and it's the same on page 5, that a new sentence be added that read, "Trout may be taken as part of the 3 game fish limit from June 1st to January 31st."
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Barnes to approve the regulation change with the change of adding the sentence on 4 and 5 of trout may be taken as part of the 3 game fish limit from June 1st to January 31st. Is the commission, everyone understanding the motion?
I do. I would offer further clarification language to that sentence that would put in that section 1,000 feet downstream of Derby Dam to the boundary of the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation, because I think what you're trying to do is communicate clearly to people that that section that is a 0 trout from February 1st through May 31st is then on those other dates can be allowed. Because this regulation, I think, is for the entire Truckee River, so I think if we're going to add this sentence, let's make it clear that the 3 game fish may include trout in that section of the lake, or I'm sorry, that section of the river that is otherwise closed from February 1st through May 31st.
I'm acceptable as the motion maker to adding that clarification.
Is it second?
I'm good.
John, you understand that? Department's okay with that?
Absolutely, I understand that some folks over there are taking very detailed notes, which will be helpful.
And I could read how I think it should, if that would help clarify things.
Let's do that.
That the sentence would be, trout may be taken as part of the 3 game fish limit from June 1st through January 31st in that section 1,000 feet downstream of Derby Dam to the boundary of the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Is everyone clear? I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously, 8-0.